Glad you are back. We're having a very spirited conversation about teens, trauma, and trouble all month long. Public Affairs on Peach has presented a series of reports on Georgia's juvenile justice system and the reforms being used to place fewer kids behind bars. CBS 46's Bobby Capel looks at one program parents have used to keep their kids on the right track.
The fact is, once children have been arrested and end up in the court system, it may be too late to head off what can end up being a lifetime of run-ins with the law. Now, parents, counselors, and educators are turning to new methods of crime prevention, starting at a very young age.
So this is our expressive therapy room.
Take a walk with Karina Giles around her Douglas County office, and you'd never think that she's on the front line when it comes to combating crime. And what do we have in here?
This is our play therapy room.
Giles owns Playtime Therapy Center, and her facility looks more like a daycare center than a therapist's office. The idea is to get to kids and help shape them before they're even tempted by crime.
Children just don't really have the capacity to handle trauma when it occurs in their lives.
In Douglas County, the juvenile court system often refers children to Playtime, where therapists work with kids ages 2 through high school. The therapy uses playing as a vehicle for insight and discussion instead of sitting a child down in a traditional office for a counseling session. What makes play therapy different from, say, traditional therapy?
They forget that they're in a therapist's office and they start to demonstrate through their play the trauma that they've gone through.
She says they automatically let their guard down and start acting out issues they may be having at home or some other aspect of their life.
They may demonstrate through their play solutions to different problems that they're having in their lives, and before they know it, they've played out their entire traumatic experience, or they've played out a solution to something that's going on without even realizing it.
Giles says lots of children who end up in the juvenile justice system have experienced trauma, and her goal is to get to them before they're tempted to commit a crime.
The best way is to start as early as you can so that they can work to repair the part of their life that was disturbed by the trauma.
We're going to resume our discussion of teens, trauma, and trouble right now, joined by a familiar face, Judge Glenda Hatchett from Fulton County Juvenile Court and television, well known, and Detective James Mello joining us as well from Gwinnett County's gang unit. We're seeing a lot about truancy intervention. That's the big issue. And you know, Judge Hatchett, you helped really get that program started. Talk about the difference it's actually made with our kids.
I'm really proud. Terry Walsh of Austin and Bard came to me as Atlanta Bar president and said, Glenda, how can I help? And I said, you know, Terry, we've got to go to the front door. We can't wait till the kids are before me on murder and armed robbery. And what we have seen, honestly, with that program, we have seen such a decline in truancy. I mean, it's more than 2 decades into the program now, and we've been able to track it and show that if we can get to these kids and get them off the streets and get them back in classrooms and keep them engaged and then get them a mentor and tutors, we can make an amazing difference in their lives. Because this is what we know. The U.S. Department of Justice will tell you through their research, the child who drops out of school is 3.5 times more likely to have a criminal record. And truancy is the #1 predictor of boys that will be, if they're truant, that they'll go on to have a record. And so if we know that, why aren't we doing more to engage this? Because if they're truant, they're not home reading literature.
No.
They are home breaking into your house, stealing your car, getting recruited by gang members, selling drugs. Absolutely. And so this is a great way, and I'm so proud of the Truancy Intervention Project that now has been replicated in other cities.
Country. It really has. Detective Mello, are you seeing some of these gang members? This was how they started with school, not going to class?
Absolutely. If they're out on the street and they're not in school, just like the judge said, then they're just out there doing crime,
yes,
getting into mischief. You have to keep these kids engaged, whether it be absolutely keep them in the classroom. They need to be playing sports, any activity after school. They just have to always have something to do. If they're just out there hanging out with their friends, then they're going to get into mischief.
You mentioned something really interesting to me, and if they're found guilty of a gang statute,
yes,
that can be harder on them, even down the road.
Absolutely. If they do a crime that falls under the gang charge, which is pretty much almost any felony, and they get tagged as a gang member, if they are in a gang and we are able to prove that they are in that gang, and the crime that they did was for the furtherance of that gang, most likely they will get charged as a gang member for the respective gang that they're in. From that point on, they are tagged as a gang member. So if a year from now they get out of jail, they do an armed robbery, at that point they did an armed robbery as a gang member. They used the gang influence to commit that crime, and they're going to have that charge also again, which carries a 5-year penalty on top of the felony that they did.
On top.
On top of it. We're going to take a quick break and stay with us as our conversation on our teens. Trauma, trouble continues. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.